Welcome back to the Infinity Travel AZ Studios. Today I have Richard Bravo with me from AmaWaterways, and we're going to talk about French river cruises today. Welcome, Richard.
Hey, Cindy, thanks so much for having me back to talk about another one of our amazing destinations. So happy to talk about all the French rivers and waterways that we travel on, but we'll be highlighting essence of Burgundy and Provence, getting into that one a bit more in detail.
Perfect. Sounds great. Take it away when you're ready.
Got it. We'll start right now. So without further ado, let's start moving through. And again, I would encourage anybody, if you have any questions, please drop them in the questions or chat box. We'll get to those at the end of the presentation. This is also going to be recorded. Cindy records all of these, and then she can get this sent out to you afterwards as well. And just because I really want you to focus on this presentation, I always hop off from the video screen right about now, but I'll pop back on near the end of the presentation and just talk a bit more with Cindy. But few things that I always like to cover, just some basics, if you will, regarding river cruising, is that it's a very unique way of traveling. You know, there's all forms of travel, right? You know, aside from some of the obvious to get from point A to point B, this is really about the experience on board. It's really about the journey. If you've never done a river cruise, the first thing you may think about is an ocean cruise, which is really quite different. And I always tell people, please don't misunderstand me, because I love ocean cruising, but this is just a very different way of traveling. It's much more intimate. It's much more immersive. You know, the similarities really do go about as far as the fact that you unpack once. Beyond that, it's quite different. You know, the ships here on the river are not the destination, because we're taking you to the destination. We're taking you right through the destination, as a matter of fact, because these waterways of Europe really are the ancient highways of being able to get from one point to another. So much of the civilizations and stories and history and culture grew up on these waterways. So this is really what makes it extra special. We are able to dock right on the side of these riverbanks, right in the heart of these ancient historic towns. You know, some small villages. You know, we're passing these steep hillside vineyards, fairy book story tale castles that we're passing by as well too. And of course, some amazing services that you're going to get on board the ship, because the ship is really your luxury floating hotel. That really is the way it should be looked at. So I wanted to make sure I sort of laid that part out, or reminded you rather. Now, in terms of where we travel, we are on 3 continents. We sailed, you know, over, I think we're probably somewhere close to about 36 or 37. A main, you know, portion of our business where we travel is on Europe. We've also got some other really exotic destinations. New to our portfolio, we will begin going to Egypt later this year in September. Now, we announced this product, I believe it was April of last year, and it has gone gangbusters. Really, just to put it quite simply, a lot of inquiries there. People are excited to go back to Egypt or go there if they've never been there before. What makes this itinerary a little bit more unique than some other ones is that with AmaWaterways, we always allow the option to add a pre or post land package. But with Egypt, we thought it was really important to actually include that as part of the package. So not only do you get a 7-night cruise, which sails round trip from Luxor with some amazing stops along the way, but we've packaged in 3 nights at the beginning in Cairo with the Four Seasons Cairo, as well as a single post night. So this is actually inclusive of 11 nights. Beyond that, however, if you want to add to it, you can add on some pre options in Jordan for 4 nights, or you can do the United Arab Emirates for 3 nights. And then on the back end, if you still want to stay longer, you can even take in Israel for an additional 4 nights. We've got the Mekong River, which is another really popular one too. And I would say one of the most you know, culturally just different and immersive and just wonderful experiences. The people in Southeast Asia are incredibly warm, very hospitable, not to mention the amazing food. But this is a 7-night cruise that sails between Cambodia and Vietnam along the Mekong River. And once again, this one has some options for pre or post stays, up to 5 different choices, and you could extend that all the way out to 16 days if you like. Similarly, we've got Africa on the Chobe River. Now, this is actually different because it's just a 4-night, very luxury safari cruise, the best you are going to be able to get out there. But once again, you probably don't want to travel all the way to this far to Southern Africa, you know, for almost a full day just to stay there 4 nights. So you can package some pre and post options and extend this all the way out to 18 nights if you like. You can do a gorilla trek in Rwanda. We've got some safaris for you to choose from. You can spend some additional time down in Johannesburg, or you make your way over to Robben Island. We've even got the old steam train, the roadless steam train that'll take you up to Victoria Falls. So some great options. But Bringing it back to Europe just for a moment, because I'd probably say, it's safe to say about 90% of our journeys take place in Europe. We've got the Danube, the Rhine River, two of the most popular ones, specifically the upper Danube between Budapest, making its way up until Vilshofen, Germany. And then we've got the Rhine River. Those two alone comprise of about 20 different options, itinerary options that you can choose from. We've got the Main River that connects both the Rhine and the Danube. And then we've got the Moselle, which is a tributary of the Rhine River, taking you as far as into Luxembourg too. So lots of great options there. The lower Danube will take you from Budapest all the way out to Romania and Bulgaria, taking in countries like Croatia as well as Serbia. So some great choices here. And then over on the far west, we've got the country of Portugal, which has some options to include Spain. Two different options here. We've got a round trip Porto sailing, and then we've also got a sailing between Porto and Vega de Teron, Spain. So you can actually do one way each direction. Once again, some pre and post options to add on 3 nights for Lisbon, or you can add in some additional nights going over to Madrid with visits to Salamanca as well as Toledo. So you can really explore some wonderful places with all these river cruise journeys. But we did say we're going to focus a bit more on France today. So I want to talk about a little bit about those options for you, and then we'll delve into essence of Burgundy and Provence. Paris and Normandy continues to be a really popular one for those folks that want to take in not only Paris, but make that way up to the northern part of France. This is a great option for you. We've got some great stops along the way that you can see here on this map. Le Havre, we've got Rouen. Of course, you have a chance to take some excursions over to the beaches of Normandy. And, with every stop along the way on a journey with AmaWaterways, we are going to include, on average, about 4 shore tours for you to choose from. And that's at every stop. We also break them up into different levels, and I'll explain that a little bit further in the presentation. But lots of options for all of our guests, which creates for smaller, more intimate excursions as you're going out, not just one large city tour with 70 or 80 plus people. So that's something to take note of. We've got pre-options, of course, around Paris that you can add on the front end or the back end. Moving away a little bit west over into the Bordeaux region between the Garonne and Dordogne River. What makes this one really unique is that you will also get a chance to take in, and I apologize here. Actually, no, I don't apologize. I thought I put the wrong map, but what we have is a blown up map down below. That's what I want you to focus on down there, actually. So sails on these 2 rivers, the Dordogne, Garonne River. What makes this particular river a little unique is that there are no, the channels, forgive me, I can't even think of the word right now, too, that we'll be going through, basically where it raises and lowers the buoy. So I'm sure you know what I'm trying to describe right now, Cindy. The channels, the locks, thank you. No locks on this river. So we're actually on tidal waters. So the waters will rise and low. So depending on the time of day, the time of year that you're traveling through some of these different ports, you're going to get a much different perspective, which really just adds to the whole experience. So we've also got some great pre and post options. That's what you can see in the larger map here, making a stop in the Loire Valley for 2 nights and then Paris for a single night. So a combination of 3 nights there, or a combination of 4 nights if you go down a little bit more south from there between Bilbao and San Sebastian. So some great extensions there. Then we have the Colors of Provence. We'll be touching a little bit on this one here. Now this one sails exclusively on the Rhone River, depending on the time of year. If you go like the month of June, for example, you're going to get a chance to witness these beautiful lavender fields. They're absolutely stunning. This one sails between the amazing city of Lyon, which I would think is probably best described really as a smaller version of Paris. And personally, I like it quite a bit more. And that's not taking anything away from Paris, but I love the fact that not as many people think of Lyon in that way. And it really is a beautiful city to explore. Great for culinary experiences as well. You can see all the stops that we have along the way here from Tourneau. We've got Vienne, we've got Le Beau, and of course Arles, where this ultimately ends. So a great itinerary to choose from. In fact, the ship that is now operating on the Rhone is the Ama Christina, which used to exclusively be up on the Rhine River. We just brought her down. She'll be doing her first itineraries on the Rhone this year. But one of the impressions are the same. This one I'm just going to move through a little quick because I want to get into the essence of Burgundy and Provence. This one, though, is new to our portfolio for this year, and Again, you can see all the stops here. Now you can add pre or post options in Paris, but what makes this one really unique, it's going to be very similar to the Paris and Normandy one. A few different things that you won't find on one versus the other, but this is one of the highlights here. Being able to visit St. Malo, we have a land package here for several nights that you can include here. This beautiful, beautiful little island, fortified city that we get a chance to stop at is one of those stops that you'll be able to include for this one too. So I wanted to share that picture. I just think it's stunning. But we've now arrived at Essence of Brittany Provence. This would be the final one that we haven't talked about yet for rivers that you can experience in France. And we'll start by taking a look at the map here. It looks like it's full of a bunch of different options, and that's because there are so many options for you to take advantage of. You have those pre and post choices where you can include Geneva on the front or back end, depending which direction you're sailing. And then we've also got the going down to Barcelona for 3 nights. Again, depending which direction you're sailing, you can include that as well. Now, starting up the town of Lyon area, this is actually, I'm sorry, not the town of Lyon, but you can see I'll mention Town and Beyond, but you can see this one takes in the Seine River down to the Rhone River. What I was going to mention about Lyon is actually the town where these two rivers come to converge. You get to sail these two rivers right there also. This one is going to start in the lovely town of Chalon-sur-Saône. Now, this is located in the southern Burgundy area, and it's really at the heart of the Côte Chalonnais wine region. Charming little riverside town, Chalon-sur-Saône. If you have a palate for fine wine, here is where you'll be able to really satisfy that urge with some really memorable visits to some of the local vineyards and the caves. And it's also home to a man, just a little side note, by the name of Joseph Nicephore Niepce, the man who took the first ever photograph through a process called heliography is actually the name of it. And there's a chance to visit that museum as well as exploring some of the town on your own, plus those different choices that we're going to include for you. Looking at some of the choices from here, you'll have a chance to choose from tours that would include a stop over at the Chateau de Couchet. This was a former fortress of the Duke of Burgundy, dating back to the 11th century, and acted as a form of protection for those that were en route between Paris and Chalon-sur-Saône. So get a chance to visit there. Then there's also going to be a chance to visit the Hospice de Beaune. This was a former charitable almshouse. It was founded in 1443 by the Chancellor of Burgundy, and it was a hospital for the poor. And you can just see that beautiful tiling that we have there included there. This, I don't believe this. These are the Zolnay tiles. Zolnay tiles look fairly similar. Those are pyroglyph tiles. You find them mostly in some of the architecture on the Danube, but very similar in these beautiful colors and decor that they created these the roofs with. We also will make a stop in Ternaux. So later in the day, we'll enjoy some scenic sailing. We'll make our way up to Ternaux. You can also pedal there from Chalon-sur-Saône if you opted to, if you're active, if you want to get out and do some fun bicycling along the countryside here along the river, that's an option for our guests as well. Here you can also take in some more samples of the region's famous white Macnais wines. And there are also some really wonderful restaurants in town, one of them actually being a Michelin star restaurant. So some great foods that you can enjoy here also. And then from here, we've got some options for you, exploring in beautiful Burgundy countryside, arguably France's most gorgeous countryside with its rolling hills. It's dotted with mustard fields and some medieval villages along the way. And then, of course, taking note of Burgundy's vineyards that have been granted UNESCO World Heritage status and recognition of the region's centuries-old history of viticulture here. So, some of the best wines you're going to experience, not only throughout all of France, but maybe even arguably throughout all of Europe, just based on the history and those old wines. And if you're into wines, and we had different conversations with some different sommeliers or just heard any discussions and things, I mean, you know that these old world wines will have some roots that will literally go down like 30, 40 plus feet. So you can just imagine all the different tastes that they're bringing up from the soil as you're enjoying these wines too. So it really makes it pretty spectacular. There's also the Chateau Comartin. It's another optional visit that's worth considering. It's surrounded by this wide moats here. The chateau started its construction back in 1606. And then there's also a really beautiful French garden to explore as well, just as beautifully sculpted French gardens to take in. And again, with some of that free time, then we're going to travel overnight to Macon and enjoy some more, excursions, some great wine tasting here, of course, as well. You can take in a bike tour or a city tour, and then, of course, leisurely time to explore on your own. And if you haven't caught, I'm trying to throw in the fact that there's some leisurely time because I don't want you to get the impression that it's going to be go, 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 go. Certainly, you could make it that if you like, but we also want to allow some free time in each of these different cities. So you can go out, do some of the things that you want to do and explore on your own. Just go out and get lost, if you will. Have a beer at a local tavern. Go out and take in a local wine bar where you don't have to feel that you're with a group the entire time. So that's always important. We always work that in. Some excellent restaurants here in this small town. Very pleasant, historic city center. Consists of a very narrow strip of pedestrian, very friendly streets to walk through, though. It's near the riverfront, and then some very top quality Macanese wines you can find here also. And then en route to Lyon is the little town of Villefranche-sur-Saône. It's the southern capital of the Beaujolais wine region, and Beaujolais is known for being uncommonly light when we're talking about the wines, very delicate to the point where it's actually chilled like the white wines, but it's a very, very light red type of wine. We'll get a chance to experience some of those as we visit the Beaujolais wine region here. And then we'll make our way into Lyon, France. And what makes this one, I think, really just something to remember is that we typically pull in as it's getting a little bit later in the evening, and you get to kind of experience it on the red carpet, if you will, the river being the red carpet. The city is completely lit up. You get to see this beautiful architecture. There's Fauvier Hill off to the left side, of course, if you're kind of traveling down south on the river here at the beautiful Fauvier Basilica up atop, and the more medieval town of Lyon to the left side. Then off to the right side, it's the more modern side too, but great to explore both sides of this. Something that Lyon offers too, which is really kind of cool, are these old passageways, these Renaissance passageways that are called the Triboules. And there's about 40 or so that are still open to the public. They run beneath the buildings in the city, in the direction of the Saône River, and these were actually created for the silk makers. Now, Lyon was actually not on the old Silk Road, but it was sort of if it's fair to describe it this way, a tributary of sorts, sort of an offshoot. So very important to getting a lot of the silks that were made here in Lyon over to the Silk Road as well too. So they did a lot of trading, and it was created so that they can make their way quickly through these passageways over to the boats to be able to get their goods on and off the ships. Of course, there's the Fauvier Basilica, and this is located on the oldest part of the city. It's a pilgrimage site where several Roman sites have been discovered also. But in looking at this particular picture, way off to the right, just up the top of that hill, is the old cathedral that we can see right there. Certainly worth a visit, because if you look at the picture on the right side, you get these amazing views looking back down over the city, of course, with the Rhone and the Saône come together. This initial part that we're looking at, if you see the statue of that angel atop the cathedral, there's an old funicular that you can take up the side of the hill, or you can take the stairs if you want to get some good exercise, or do one or the other, going up and coming back down. You make your way down there. You're now in the old medieval part of the town. Just great to go out and explore. Love this town here. Some great food, as I mentioned as well. In fact, we've got a wonderful food tour that I'll share on the next slide. And then across the river is a more modern town. If you can kind of spot that city square, sort of that dirt or sand in that one area. It's kind of a main place where a lot of people go. They have different events there. Also, there's a really large Ferris wheel. And then anywhere from around there, just again, some great restaurants, really wonderful shopping for you to do as well. And on this next slide, we'll talk just a little bit about some of those culinary experiences that you can satisfy those taste buds with. Like I said before, a lot of people don't think of Lyon, but similar to Paris in the sense that it just has so much to offer. One of the things that I'll call out on this particular menu is the Comté cheese. The cheese is made from unpasteurized cow's milk. It's quite popular, has the highest production of all the French AOC cheeses in the region at around 64,000 tons annually. There's also the wonderful Lyonnais sausage and brioche. It's a soft brioche dough with this wonderful salty sausage that they plant inside, in addition to some of the other things that you see here also. So wonderful tour if you want to go and really do some wonderful pairings of some wines along the way with some of these different dishes. Continuing on, later we'll actually make a stop in Vienne, and here we'll get to see some of marvelously preserved Roman ruins from this area. So a lot of the Roman Empire, right? This is all part of the Roman Empire at one time. Some really great preserved ruins that we'll be able to see here. There's also another really charming sort of, it's this mini train ride that will actually take you around the city. And it may seem just like a little childish, but it's definitely worth doing. Additionally, we also offer guided bike tour here. There's also a guided hike up to the monastery atop Mount Pipet, looking down over the city of Vienna. And then here at the cloister at St. Trophime, just beautiful architecture. The structure is really wonderful. It's, the way that they did it was that they detailed all these wonderful biblical stories onto the pillars. So as you walk around and look at some of these different pillars, you'll find stories that speak to Jesus after the transfiguration, or Moses meeting God by the burning bush, or St. Stephen being stoned. And it's just a really wonderful piece of art to take in. Continuing on, we'll make our way over to Valence, and we're going to also include a visit to St. Apollinaris Cathedral and do some wine tasting here. But you also have some choices. If you don't want to do the wine tasting, take a bite tour, or you can visit a cooking class tour as well too. So these again are some of the unique things that we look to build into our itineraries. I think it's worth mentioning that we're coming upon our 19th anniversary this year in July that AmaWaterways has been around, and it was founded by a gentleman and his wife and another man. So Rudy Schreiner is kind of the one who really kind of pulled it together. He's been given the nickname and honor of being the godfather of river cruising for a number of reasons. But the reason I want to speak to him a little bit is because he grew up in Vienna. He grew up on the Danube River. It's near and dear to him, the river itself, and just sailing these rivers. He's an architect by trade. He's actually designed all the ships that we own and operate in all the rivers of Europe. And it was him back in the year 1993 that had the understanding that when they dredged the Main-Danube Canal, that it created an opportunity where you could literally now travel all the way from the Baltic Sea, making your way all through the continent of Europe as far as the Black Sea. When he realized this, he just thought, we need to do something about this. He was working with another river cruise company at the time and got them to start building out this product. He was then asked to be the very first president of another very well-known, I'll leave it at that, river company. He was very first president. And then again, nearly 19 years ago, him, along with his now wife, Christine Karst, a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Murphy, they started AmaWaterways. All this to get to the point that they wanted to create not just another river cruise experience, but something that was going to offer unique things along the way that nobody else was doing, that they themselves would want to enjoy time and time again. So I can't emphasize enough, that these are all the things that are really put AmaWaterways in a position that we've, received far more accolades and recognitions and awards than any other river cruise partner out there. So I had to share that, and we'll then continue on. We'll make our way into the town of Avignon, the city of popes, the center of the Catholic Church in the 14th century, when it's Palais de Pape was actually equivalent to today's Vatican. You can actually take in a guided tour that includes the Papal Palace, and then get an up and close look at the well-preserved medieval walls surrounding the historic city center. This has also been given UNESCO World Heritage Sites, some great alleyways to kind of go out and explore, some wonderful little cafes to stop and, just enjoy coffee, talk about your experiences, talk about what you're going to do next, just take a chance to sit and smell the roses, if you will. These should not be things that you feel that you just got to keep going, and you're not enjoying it along the way. You should really create some time to sit down and really just kind of take in those moments. I think this would be a great town to do that. Some great artisans in the area to pick up some goods as well. Also, another wonderful culinary tasting that we can do when we're here in Avignon. Again, exploring these beautiful alleyways. We're going to give you some free time to go out and do some things on your own. I talked about the local artisans, go out and do some tastings on your own as well. Some great regional cuisines there. We will ultimately end up, after all that long journey, we'll make our way into Arles, France. And this was home to Van Gogh. He stayed here for 2 years, was home to some of his renowned masterpieces like the Starry Night or Cafe Terrace at night, before, of course, he suffered the infamous mental breakdown. We've got a wonderful walking tour here where you can learn much more about him and his works, in addition to some other things that you can go out and do on your own. And then once again, just want to flash this map to show all the places that we just walked through right now between the Saône and the Rhone. Look at all those cities that you have a chance to go and explore along the way, and then tie it in with some of those pre and post options. I think it's one of the most beautiful areas, not only in all of Europe, but certainly in all of France. In fact, my wife and I, because of that, we spent our honeymoon in France. Of course, we took in some time up in Paris, but it was that area between Lyon all the way down into the Provence area, down into Arles. It really was quite spectacular. And just briefly touching upon those pre and post options, if you want to take in the visit over to Geneva for 3 nights, it's also going to include a visit to the wonderful little town of Annecy. This is sort of like a little mini Venice, if you will. And depending on the time of year that you travel, we don't really promote this as a Christmas market visit. But if you travel anytime, pretty much, any one of the Sundays that fall into about 4 weeks before Christmas, you'll be able to take in a wonderful little Christmas market area here. We really enjoy this. And then there's also a stop in Dijon, France also. And then if you're looking to do the opposite side, going over to Barcelona, of course, we could spend hours talking about all the wonderful things of Barcelona, but I included these particular photos here just because you'll find some of this just amazing, whimsical, very artsy architecture in a number of places throughout the city of Barcelona. So that really covers all the main highlights here. And then I'm just going to tie this part up a little bit quickly. I won't spend too much time on this, but I did want to highlight some of those things that really are AmaWaterways points of distinction. They're the things that speak to the fact that we've earned more awards than any other river cruise line out there. And I'd say it begins with our crew, and even more specifically, our cruise managers. Your cruise managers are that VIP host while you're sailing. They're incredibly knowledgeable because they get a chance to experience so many of our rivers, so many of our different ships. So they're very familiar with the product, if you will. As they're doing these different rivers, they're visiting different towns, they're sailing with different crew, they're experiencing different shore tours. So they really become quite knowledgeable on these. So it really makes them an expert when they're looking to point you in the right direction or make some recommendations. The beautiful panoramic lounges. This is a typical panoramic lounge of all of our ships sailing in Europe. Some may be a little bit larger, some a little bit smaller based on which ship you're sailing on and what rivers it's sailing on. For example, if you're sailing on the Douro, those ones are going to be just a bit more intimate, but it's going to have the same look and feel. And this is the main gathering place of all the guests. Socialize, meeting other people, talking about your day's experiences. What shore tour did you do? How was yours? Would you recommend doing that one? What foods did you eat? And some people will bring back some of the wines or beers that they picked up here and share it with some other guests also. But it's also the place where you're going to hear some evening lectures. You're going to hear from the cruise manager. If you're sailing on one of our celebration of wine tours, which is where we bring along a North American wine host, you may be doing some different wine pairings and wine tastings and hearing about, just the wines from the regions that you're sailing to. It also turns into a full-blown disco in the evening, and it's just a fun place to come and gather. This is one of our most popular staterooms, the twin balcony stateroom, where you get the benefits of both a French balcony and a full step out balcony. So if you consider the time of year that you're traveling, what the weather may be like, you get to choose from both of those. So that French balcony on the right side has that nice sitting area. You've got that sliding glass window, but it's pressed all the way up against that railing, right? So from sitting inside, you can still take in some really great views of the landscape you're passing by. And great weather, of course, you have the full step out balcony just to sit out there, enjoy some coffee in the morning and watch that scenery pass you by. We've also got technology in our staterooms. We want you to stay connected, but you can leave your laptop at home and use our complimentary Wi-Fi throughout the ship, and of course the computer in the stateroom. Dining is a big part of this. I think it's a big part, certainly for me. If I even do just a short weekend trip or even an overnight, I want to take some of those local things that I may not be able to enjoy back at home. So we want to make sure you're enjoying that on board the ship. We've got our main dining room. Cindy's heard me share this a number of times, which operates more as a progressive dining experience. And that's because the menu is constantly changing and picking up those different cuisines and bringing them on board the ship for you to experience. But if you just want that steak, you can do that too. If you just want that Caesar salad, that's always an option. This, though, is our chef's table restaurant. This is a much more intimate alternative dining option. No additional charge. You just need to make reservations. We'll get you set up as soon as we can. But it's a tasting menu of sorts that we build a 6-course menu around. You can taste as many things as you want, up to 4 different wine pairings. You get to witness the chef and his team preparing the food, plating the food, bringing it out. And these are all fresh ingredients that we use. In fact, you will hear this directly from one of our owners, Gary Murphy, where he tells a story that, listen, we have freezers on board. That's for the ice cream because we're picking up fresh ingredients along the way and cooking those things, preparing them daily. So it really just makes for a wonderful experience. Complimentary sip and steal cocktail hour each evening. But I will also mention that with every lunch, with every dinner, in addition to this complimentary cocktail hour each evening before dinner, we will serve premium wines and premium beers that are going to be regional to the area. If you want champagne mimosas at breakfast, we'll make sure we get that set up for you as well. It's really the period after lunch up into cocktail hour or after dinner that we're not serving them complimentary. And that is by design. It is because when we're in town, we want you off the ship. We want you experiencing the destination. That's the whole purpose of this, right? To experience these destinations. Once again, we are your luxury floating hotel. You probably wouldn't be traveling all the way to some beautiful, cities abroad, and just because the hotel had complimentary drinks, you probably wouldn't be hanging out there all day. You'd be out experiencing some of those local sites and things. So that's really kind of how we designed our ships and that experience around the drinks also. The shore tours, I know I talked about it a bit about this too, but just remember lots of options. We have what we call our gentle or regular and active. So they kind of range from moving a little bit, slower pace, a little bit easier pace, but still taking in highlights, to taking in just a little bit more with the regular one. And then the active would be a guided cycling tour. It might be a guided hiking tour, but you can still use the bicycles if you wanted to do just head out into town for a couple of hours, do some exploring on your own. They are there for you. You're used to do that as well. And then if that's not enough, we've got our late risers option. So if you don't want to kind of get up and get going a little bit more immediately, you can enjoy breakfast, sip on that coffee, and get more of a mid-morning start with the late risers option as well. And I talked about the bicycles, 25 bicycles on board every one of our European vessels, with the exception of the Douro, just because it's not as bike friendly where we dock in some of these towns. And then wellness and health. We've got a gym on board every one of our vessels. We've got even like pools or some sort of a water feature, I should say, on board every one of our vessels. But we've got a dedicated health and wellness instructor. He does not double as a server later on that evening at dinner time. He is doing morning Pilates. He's doing morning stretches. He's doing morning yoga sessions, and helps a lot of people actually to put together some of their own personalized exercise routines. And you're probably going to be eating more. You may be drinking a bit more than you would if you were at home too. So just a great way to kind of maintain staying in shape, if you like. And then in ending this, I will just say very briefly, we did sail last year quite successfully for 4 months. It was to the German-speaking audience only on the Rhine. We had not a single incident of COVID to report. Thank God that we were able to do it safely and protect the experience that our guests have come to know and love. And I want to emphasize also, because I understand the concerns that people have, I truly do, but not one incident of COVID the entire time that we were sailing. And this was before the vaccines were even out. So now knowing that a lot of people are getting vaccinated, I feel very confident saying we can do this, and we can make sure that you can be rest assured we're taking every precaution to make sure that everybody has a safe, enjoyable environment without compromising that experience that they come to really know and enjoy with AmaWaterways. So that about concludes my presentation. I can speak to this part right now, and I'll come back on screen here. But the last part that I would share is that there are options to protect that travel investment. And so what we're looking at right here, so we have what we call our ultimate cruise flexibility. We've now extended this through the end of May, and this protects your cruise portion only. It would allow you, let's say that you got a sailing that's going to be departing October this year. For whatever reason, if you just feel like, I think I want to move this to next year, you can do that. We'll move that cruise portion to next year, no penalties. Find another date, get you secured. The only additional cost would be whatever the incremental amounts would be to that new sailing. Protecting your full travel investment. Now, that's where our travel waiver comes into play, travel waiver plus, because the ultimate cruise again protects the cruise portion only. You can move that for any reason. Travel waiver plus allows you to move for any reason, or you can cancel for any reason up to 24 hours prior to departure. And let's say that you canceled at a time where you would normally incur, let's say, 50% penalty. Then 50% we would refund back to you if you opted for refund and you were just canceling. That other 50% that would normally be under penalty, what we would do is retain that as a future cruise credit. So when you're ready to sail with us again, you've got that credit on file and you don't lose it. So that's basically how to protect the full value of it. So that's about all, Cindy. I think I probably talked quite a bit today, but if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to discuss further, please let me know. I just want to make sure we have Cindy's contact information if you're looking for that.
I thought it was, excuse me, awesome as always. I love the fact that the yoga instructor is not going to be my waiter at
That's right.
night.
That's
Not that
important.
there's anything wrong with multitasking, but it just gives a little something special. So
Absolutely. Yes.
I thought
Yes.
that was a great comment. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I always do. And yes, I invite anybody that has any questions, please contact me. And if I don't have the answer, I will contact Richard ASAP. So
Right. Do I have a chance to share one more quick note here that might be important? Is that okay?
sure.
So, yeah, just really quick, so that I think everybody knows this, or at least will recognize it when I share this with you. But when we can fully return to sailing, there's going to be a transition period, right? It's highly unlikely that restrictions are going to be lifted, that we'll be able to manage things to a point where all our fleet is now once again sailing at the same time. It's not likely to happen. So during this transition, I would guess, and I think it's probably a very safe guess, that we'll probably be able to return to the waters when we're sailing through a single country, like Portugal or like all the French itineraries that we just looked at right now, versus the rivers where we're going through multiple countries.
Right.
Just because every country, in addition to what the EU may be putting out, each country can say, here's what we want on top of that, or here's where we're going to be a little bit different. And we have to be able to manage to all that too. So I think it's important to note that even looking at today's presentation, look at some of those French rivers, maybe consider Portugal as, again, those one options. If you really want to get out there right away, there may be a chance to return a little bit sooner if you're looking at 1B sailing. So I thought that was important to note.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's a very good point. So definitely.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. Again, I always appreciate the fact that you come on and do this with me. I loved it. So
Thank you so much, Cindy. Appreciate the opportunity always. Yeah.
definitely. So I will look forward to our next opportunity to chat, and I will wish you a good day.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks again, Cindy.
All right. Take care. Have a great day.
You too.